This is Jeff Shelton. Today we're going to be talking about my favorite subject, embarrassing blunders when RVing. Stick around for the whole live stream. I'd love to hear your worst mishaps out there. My name is Jeff Shelton. I'm the CEO of Wholesale Warranties. We specialize in doing the extended warranties on RVs specifically. We also do automobiles, travel trailers, you name it. But today I really wanted to share with you a few of my worst RV blunders. Well, I started this business as a full-time RVer. The idea was to travel the country, offer wholesale warranties at a discount. Ended up actually staying here in San Diego, my home base. And for me, the lessons that I've learned by being a full-time RVer, they sink in a little bit deeper when you learn them the hard way. So I think the purpose of this video is for you to learn a little bit of, from someone that has traveled down that path of being a full-time RVer and sharing with you those embarrassing blunders that I've made, and maybe hopefully give you some tips on how to do things better. Again, like I said, share your tips. I'd love to actually hear any of your stories of your blunders and maybe call you out live on this webcast. So I think, the first thing that I really learned very quickly is when I bought my RV, I actually bought a Hummer to tow behind the RV. And actually, as I was getting it set up, I really didn't realize this, but when you're towing a vehicle behind a motorhome, you really can't back up. So typically what I would do is I would just drive wherever I was going, get gas along the way. And the challenge really became apparent that some of these gas stations, you can't back up, or they're just really tight, constrained areas. So after making a few big mistakes and actually I got a pretty decent dent here on the side of my RV one time trying to back up and having to disconnect the Hummer from my motorhome. I realized, what the best thing to do is when I'm going on long trips, I'd always map out my gas stops ahead of time. And the great thing with Google Maps is you can actually zoom in on what the gas station looks like. So if you have, a motorhome that you're towing a vehicle behind, and even if you're towing like a travel trailer or fifth wheel, those gas stations that are giving you a decent price and you can actually just pull through and don't have to deal with backing in and out or doing a three-point turn, that will save you a ton of time. And the main thing for me is just that frustration of not knowing if you're going to be able to squeeze through on those gas stations. So, map out your gas stops ahead of time, and also RV parks, obviously, as well. And the other thing that I learned the hard way is that I should have known this because I've been a boater all my life. But after the season was done of motorhoming, and I did this with the boat as well, sometimes if I had little repairs, I would wait till the spring to get those things fixed. That's a terrible idea. And I think you guys can probably, of course, it's a little bit obvious to you, but I think it's a great reminder to say, hey, get those repairs in the off season. This is when the repair facilities are quiet and have more time to work on your rig. And it's typically whenever I brought my unit out of storage or it's got it de-winterized, then I'm thinking, oh yeah, you know what? I need to take care of that microwave. I need to get that slide out fixed. I need to get whatever needs to be taken care of the RV. And then by then, you're probably 2 or 3 weeks out and you have a trip coming up and you still have to deal with that issue. So get it done on the off season whenever possible. The other thing that I learned is, again, sometimes it's a little bit of a basic tip, but you need reminding, is that when I'm done with the trip, I'm exhausted. I don't want to clean up after myself. Sometimes I will leave things like food out. I won't go through the RV and drain all the fluids from it, especially like black water and gray water stuff and fresh water. So whenever you're done using your RV, it's actually a really good idea to make sure that you get rid of anything that rodents can eat and treat your actual water, the black water tanks, drain those out. So when you get back into it and want to hit the road, you don't have to deal with all the ants, rats, things that can cause odors on your RV. The last trip that I made was all the way from San Diego to Wisconsin. Yeah, sure enough, I left out some potato chips. When I came in there, not only were there ants everywhere, I had to deal with a mouse that was crawling around, really grossing us out, and was there with us the entire trip. Couldn't get rid of them. So if I would have just use a common tip of just clean everything out when you're done. I know you're exhausted after the trip. Make sure you take care of that stuff ahead of time. I promise you, it'll save you so much more distress in the long run. And the other thing that I think is really worth mentioning too is, when I was full timing, I made sure that I signed up with a couple of what turned out to be my favorite memberships. That being Escapees, and then also Passport America. Now, Escapees is a whole membership in itself, great benefits. But one of the things that they're able to do is they give you a discount campgrounds. Same with Passport America, 50% off all these various campgrounds all throughout the country. It's relatively inexpensive, typically $50 or something like that. And what I found is the money that you save just on campgrounds alone are very, very worthwhile. And this kind of comes back to mapping out your trips, is making sure that you get the best possible value in every campground that you stay in. You find those campgrounds that are going to be easy access, and you can get an inexpensive night's rest. Now, for me, typically, if I'm going to a destination, I'm not too I go to the nice campgrounds where they have activities, and maybe they don't have a discount. But where this really comes into handy is when you're actually going those discounts when you're traveling, or when you're traveling a long distance, you need to make a stop, and you're just basically spending the night. Well, why pay $50, $60 if you can get a campground for 10 or 15 if you're just sleeping there? So that's really saved me a lot of money and a lot of hassle. It's easier also to plan out your trip with those apps and those memberships. And the last tip that I'll leave you with is the list that I really, really highly recommend that you make as far as the things to carry with you, a few of the essential items. I actually found a really cool app called RV Companion. And essentially, the reason I think it's really cool is it's simple. It's essentially, they have a few little bells and whistles. But mainly what I use it for is to be able to just make a checklist of all the things that you want to carry with you when you're RVing. And a couple things that I quickly learned to carry with me was, a battery boost pack. I actually didn't have to use it for my RV. Most motorhomes, if your coach batteries die, you'll have your engine. If your engine battery dies, you can switch it over to your coach. Most of the time, for most people, you won't have to use it. However, if you do, it's awesome to have it there. And the big thing that I like about it is I like giving other people a boost. Be a good neighbor. Have all the stuff prepared. Be that guy that can be the hero and come save your neighbor's distress. And the other thing that I always carried with me is I had a 50 amp, pretty logical. Not everybody takes 50 amps. Sometimes it's 30. Obviously, you want to have the converter from a 50 to a 30. And then obviously, if you don't have access to those type of powers, also keep a 110 adapter. And another little interesting note is, although I had a 50 amp plug-in, I also carried a 30 to a 50 amp. Doesn't make sense. I wouldn't really need that, right? However, kind of go back to that good neighbor thing. I've actually bought 2 of them and I've given them away just because I wanted to be the hero at the campground. Somebody forgot their adapter. It's nice to have these loose parts to help other people out in time of need. Also, hoses. I always kept an extra hose because for some reason, I have a horrible time with hoses. They always leak on me. It's always nice to have an extra hose. If you don't need it, more than likely you're going to find a friend that has some type of leak. It's nice to have that extra hose, an extra little O-ring in there to make sure that they don't leak as well. Obviously, bandage kits, flashlights, all these things that you can make sure that will actually be in the RV Companion app to go to make a checklist of everything that you need. And then you could add all the things that are particular to you, your experiences, and your RVing needs. So I definitely highly recommend checking out that app. It can be a lifesaver, and making sure that if you do use something, replenish it as well. I'll end on this. One other thing too that I found very handy is I have a roadside assistance program that is very helpful. And one thing that I noticed is when I was coming back from a trip, I was actually staying in an RV park, and I was going to have a big group of friends over and just enjoy a football game and tailgate and have a big party. But one thing that I noticed is that my slide outs would not pull up, and I could not figure out for the life of me why they weren't working. When you're having people over, that's a huge issue. Especially I had a 40-foot RV, 3 slide outs, and it probably about 2.5 hours into trying to figure out how this works. I actually called the Roadside Assistance to try to get a professional to walk me through how to possibly fix this. So I had a feeling that it was maybe possibly user error because I didn't see anything. I didn't hear any mechanical noises. I didn't hear any issues with it whatsoever. They walked me through a few steps, but the final step that actually embarrassed me in front of a huge group of people was they had me walk through and make sure that all the slide outs were the leveling system that was down and that my chairs were up. Long story short, it ended up being that my captain's chair just needed to move 1 more inch, and then it unlocked the entire system. 3 hours of painful, excruciating troubleshooting, and it was that simple. And I've told that story to a couple people, and apparently I'm not alone in that. Sometimes it takes a little bit of troubleshooting and learning the hard way to figure out exactly how to work your RV, and just those little nuances can save us a lot of time. So thanks for joining us, and feel free to share your embarrassing stories, and join us next time. Thank you.